Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic on Totem Sports. I have my good friend AJ Hampton here. And AJ, how you doing this morning?
Coach, I'm blessed. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. Can you tell the clinic a little bit about yourself and your story?
Yes, sir. I'm originally from Roanoke, Virginia. I played my high school ball at Lord Botetourt, small town within Roanoke, Virginia. Uh, Went to the University of Mount Union, played 2 years there, fell short in two national championships, ended up transferring to Emory Henry College where I got my bachelor's degree. Graduated, like I said, graduated from there, went on to play arena football for a season in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then I got into coaching. Started off at Florida State University as a student assistant. Got my two graduate degrees. Graduate degrees from there. Worked under Willie Taggart and Mike Norvell, both with the tight ends and the wide receivers. Did a short stint at Midwestern State University out in Texas. I was probably there a month, and then I took the wide receiver position, passing game coordinator position at West Virginia State University, a D2 out in Charleston, West Virginia. I was there for a year, but 2 seasons because we had the COVID season in the spring. Um, Ended up leaving there, and then I took the job at Morgan State as a wide receivers coach. And I was only there a month because the head coach took a job in the NFL, and I ended up just recently taking last January the defensive back graduate assistant here at Virginia Tech. So that's kind of my story in a gist.
And like me and you, I've known you for, I'd say, a little over a year.
Yes, sir.
First time I met you was when you came to LC Bird High School and you was recruiting.
Yes, sir.
And I saw you, and then I saw you went to Morgan State within a month, and then I went to the party that they had at Virginia Tech before we had the Championship Football Coaches Clinic, and I saw you. So, I mean, it just shows how you treat people and how you are as a person. You can move up so fast in this business. And I'm so proud of you being from Virginia and coaching at Virginia Tech. So I know everybody's excited to see you, Coach. So appreciate you, man, for coming on.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, Coach. You kind of first time I met you, you kind of spoke it into existence, and it happened shortly after. So I appreciate you for believing in me, and hopefully I continue to make you and others proud.
Yes, sir.
So let's dig into it, man. This presentation I wanted to touch base on what culture means to me. Also, a little bit about recruiting, and then really dig into wide receiver play and the fundamentals that I think coexist within any offense for a wide receiver. And I have filmed to kind of show how it worked for me at West Virginia State, some of the techniques and drills that I utilized. So without further ado, let's dig into it. So first, what is culture? And I think if you ask 100 people, you probably get 100 different answers on this question. So for me, in my short coaching career, I kind of pulled from each coach that I worked for, from Taggart to Norvell to obviously Coach Pry now, and try to make my own beliefs on what culture really means and what it stands for. And for me, culture is just a set of common beliefs, and or expectations that drive common actions. And in those shared actions, you kind of get a desired approach. And you hear coaches oftentimes in regard to culture, they speak upon buy-in. And I think that's a phrase that's often overutilized. And I think that coaches have to be keenly aware of what they mean when they say buy-in, because you have to ask yourself, when you're asking players, parents, assistants, whatever it may be, to buy in, you have to ask yourself, is what they're buying into, is it a choice or is it a demand? I've worked for coaches who didn't allow players to wear hoodies in the building, didn't allow players to wear hats or earrings in the building or headphones in the building. And then I've worked for coaches that say, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late, which kind of creates a dichotomy in the player's mind. It's kind of difficult to understand that if I'm 3 minutes early, I'm late. So you got to kind of understand when working with buy-in and culture, what is a choice and what is a demand? Because a choice comes with options. So you tell your players, part of my culture is, let's say, for example, you got to be early. Okay, well, now you have a choice. What defines early? Is 2 minutes early? Is 10 minutes early? Is 15 minutes early? Is I walk in right before you start the meeting? Is that determined early? So the choice now becomes You're putting it back on your players. So for me, I think you have to have a defined set of expectations, and each program, for the most part, has those. And within those, though, you have to determine, is it going to be a choice or is it going to be a demand? If I'm going to demand this from my players, then it has to be a non-negotiable, whatever that looks like for your program. And then lastly, you have to ask yourself, what are you selling? When you're asking someone to buy in, literally you're using an analogy of purchasing something or believing in something. So you have to ask yourself, what are you selling for them to, hypothetically purchase from you? And you hear the quote oftentimes that you don't see a Rolls Royce commercial because it sells itself. And while that may be true, why does a Rolls Royce sell itself? Well, because at one point in time, someone purchased a Rolls Royce, and that experience, through word of mouth, through shared experience, got passed along, and that's what allowed the Rolls Royce to sell itself. So in coaching, it's very difficult because, I'm a young coach and I relate to the players well because I'm not far fetched from playing myself, and you got to ask yourself, what is it that these players are buying into? If you're not a coach who's been coaching 20 years, they don't have your track record to look at and say, okay, well, this coach won 10 games every season he's been coaching. He's been doing it 2 decades. All I got to do is do what he says, and I win 10 games, right? That's an easy approach. When you're a first-year head coach, when you're a third-year head coach, and you've had 2, 4, and 6 seasons, and you're expecting someone to buy in, I think it's vitally important to say what is important to those individuals, what is important to your team, what is important to those players, because you could stand outside Walmart all day and try to sell a Maserati, but if it's not important for anyone walking in, you're not going to sell it. So I think that when dealing with culture, I just want to go back and say, it's a set of common beliefs that set and drive a set of common actions in order to get that buy-in that a lot of coaches say, or a belief system. You have to determine what it is that your players want to buy into, what it is that they're interested in, and then you got to set your demands and your choices. And I think that, for me, is what culture is all about. And you see the quote right here that says, culture precedes positive results. It doesn't get tacked on as an afterthought on your way to the victory stand. Champions behave like champions before they're champions. They have a winning standard of performance before they're winners. And I believe all coaches want that. You want a reflection of yourself. And the easiest way, in my opinion, to drive a culture, to set a standard, is to be a reflection of that standard. Players see hypocrisy very fast. If you're asking your players to be early and show up energetic, but you come late and you don't show up energetic, you're going to create a dichotomy quickly that makes it very difficult for them to, buy in, as I spoke on earlier. And so with culture, you always got to understand whatever standards you set as a coach, you have to meet that and or exceed that if you expect your players to do the same. So that's me touching base on culture and kind of building upon it. As I go forward, I want to speak a little bit about, what coaching specifically means to me.
I appreciate you talking about this, because this is probably, more important than the X's and O's or
Right.
Running a certain play. Culture to us means a way of life, and the greatest motivators and greatest coaches and teachers I've ever been around are the ones that can see something in you that you can't even see in yourself.
Right.
So there's, just like, when I first met you, man, I saw something special in the way that you talked and the way that you were. And, as a coach, if we do that to our players, the sky's the limit. If anybody's watching, I think y'all can comment on YouTube and the comments will pop up. And if it's not working, somebody text me, let me know. But AJ, man, you're doing awesome. Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to add that in there. If there's anything you'd like to add, who are some of the best, motivators that you've been around? Who had some of the best culture that you've been around?
Well, I'll say this. I've been blessed to be at multiple Power 5 institutions, Florida State and Virginia Tech, obviously. I've also worked at small schools from Emory Henry to West Virginia State. I've worked at HBCUs. So I've been blessed to kind of bounce around and get my feel for things. And I don't say this because I work for him now, but I say this honestly. Coach Derek Jones is one of the best, in my opinion, when it comes to driving a culture. And like I said, it's because he's a reflection of it on a daily basis. And more than anything, I think that I live by this quote, and it's very important to me. And it's people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And you can try to drive a culture all you want, you can try to drive expectations all you want, but until you work on cultivating relationships, and like I said previously, determine what's important to those individuals, it's going to be very hard to motivate them. And I think Coach Jones, who I obviously work for right now, does a great job at digging into the human, to the young man in this profession, and seeing what are his weaknesses, what are his flaws as a young man, and how can I build upon those things and also cater to what's important to him. So just the first person that comes to mind is Coach Derek Jones. And like I said, I don't say that because I work for him right now. I say that as the honest truth. He's really, really good as a culture driver. So I'd have to say him.
Yes, sir.
So like I said, moving forward, go to the next slide. What is coaching? And I tell people this all the time. For me, coaching is very similar to teaching. The difference is you're teaching a sport, and ironically, like I just touched base on, life is being taught in the process. And I know on this picture it's kind of choppy, kind of goes over the quote, but essentially it says coaching means everything to me. It's not just what I do, it's who I am. And I know, let me pause in the middle of my quote. A lot of people say, coaching is not who I am. It is what I do. It is my profession. I'm bigger than this. And I think everybody's entitled to their opinion. But I've loved football since I could walk, since I was 2 years old. And I think that football is a great parallel to life. And it's really part of who I am. And it really saved me being where I'm from in Roanoke, Virginia. There's a lot of temptation to do the wrong things. And great coaches in the game of football helped me. And so I think it's only right if I pay it back. And so to finish the quote, as you can see, I say, great coaches saved my life, and I intend to use this profession to save more.
Who are some of those coaches?
The first that comes to mind is Coach Jamie Harless, my high school head coach, one of the greatest men, I've ever met. He's the first to come to mind. And then I was obviously recruited by Larry Karras, who's a College Football Hall of Fame coach. I think he has actually the best winning percentage of all time at any level. So being coached by him and seeing how detail oriented he was, and also seeing how consistent he was, and being the same hard coach on my quarterback, who was the Division III Heisman winner, as he was on some of my teammates who played on the Division III JV team. He was the same coach to all of those guys, and seeing him do that really helped me, like I said, buy in to their culture there at Mount Union, and those two are the ones that stick out first. And then some young coaches, that I think are really, really great are Marcus Davis. He just got hired at Auburn as a receiver coach. And then Man Ray St. Amour is actually the tight ends coach at Charleston Southern. I lived with them when I worked at Florida State, and those two young coaches really set the standard for me and showed me what it meant to grow from being a young guy who just left playing football to actually coaching and making an impact on the lives of young men. So I would say those four men definitely stick out to me. So now the coach's creed, and Coach Taylor knows this because every single recruiting visit I go on, any school I've ever been in, I tell this to the players, and I think this is vitally important. When I coach players, I tell them all this before I ever show them a slide, before I ever show them an install, and it's very simple. And it's, I will coach all players, number one, respectfully. And this is big for me because as a player, I had a hard time with coaches who just curse me out and rip me, because I'm very analytical in my approach and the way that I learn. And I didn't have a problem, being ripped. I had an issue with the coach not asking me what's the best way for me to learn, right? I didn't do well reading through the ripping and getting the message. And I think that for me, that allowed me to see and determine that I want to coach guys respectfully. I want to coach guys where they listen to what I have to say and they're eager to hear what I have to say and want to be taught. And, Ray Lewis once said to get respect, you got to give respect. And you can't expect someone to respect you if they don't know you. So when you take a job, I don't expect, say I'm coaching the receivers, I don't expect those guys to respect me. Why would they respect me? Just because I have a title? That's not fair. That's not a fair expectation. There's people across the world who have all kinds of titles who I know that we don't respect because they don't stand on good pillars as men or as women. So I think before anything, you have to learn the names, learn how you enunciate and pronunciate the names of your players. You know, that's the quickest way to get on someone's bad side is to consistently say their name the wrong way. Show them respect and learning the small details about them, and I think they'll do the same in return. Secondly, I think is imperative, vitally important to coach your players honestly. You know, that's something that you have to stand on as a person. You don't want your players lying to you, and in return, you shouldn't lie to your players. And thirdly, and maybe most importantly, is coaching your players purposefully. You know, I hate when a guy, ask a coach, coach, why are we doing this drill? And the coach says something like, because I said so. Don't worry about it. Just do the drill. No, you should have an answer for him on what it is that you desire to get out of that drill. What are you doing it for? What is the purpose and direction that you expect your player to garner from the drill, from the practice that you're preaching? So in anything and everything that I do as a coach is done with the purpose. And then obviously I like to say all these at the same time, directly, passionately, thoroughly, and fundamentally. And I say directly, and I always kind of smirk when I say this one because everybody says they want a coach who's direct. Everybody says they want a coach who's honest. And then pregame comes around, they say, Coach, you think I'm going to get in today? You say, no. And like, Coach, what's going on, man? Why I can't get in today? Why can't I play? And I can always go back and say, remember when I told you I was going to coach you with purpose? Remember I told you I was going to coach you honestly and thoroughly? Well, I graded you every day throughout practice, and you don't grade out well enough for me to put you on the field. So what would be the purpose in us helping this team and driving the culture of what we determined at the beginning of the season if I play you and you aren't ready yet? And I think that type of honesty, that type of direct coaching, that type of thorough and fundamental approach allows players to have respect when those tough conversations present themselves. So that's the coach's creed for me. And I tell players, when they see this, right, if a coach comes into your school or he calls you on the phone and he doesn't tell you this, you need to hang up. You need to walk out to me respectfully. The number one thing college coach, a high school coach, any coach should do or should be there for is to develop you as a human, and, as a young man in the game of football. Because why? Even if you have a Ray Lewis type career, Ed Reed type career, and you play 20 years in the NFL, let's say you graduated college at 22, like most people do in 4 years, and you go play 20 years in the NFL. Now you're 42 years old. Obviously, you'd be a multimillionaire, and financially you're set. Well, you still have to have some pillars that you stand on as a person. And I think if your coach doesn't work to develop those pillars, then your financial situation is going to drive you in a negative direction way faster than it will a positive direction. So for me, manhood and being a human outlasts the game of playing football. So the most important thing is to develop the person behind the helmet, inside the helmet, behind the pads, previous to the player. So if I could go back and remake this slide, I would say to develop players as men off the field and then on the field, to be honest, because I think off the field should come first. And then obviously to help them improve as complete football players, to help players gain knowledge in all walks of life and to create connections for them in the future. You asked me 2 questions throughout this interview so far, and both of them kind of coexisted with who do you know, coach, or who comes to mind. And I think the game of football is great for creating those connections and making relationships, right? I wouldn't even be on here if it wasn't for you and I having a relationship. And bouncing around and being in different places comes with its challenges, obviously, but also I think the positive side of it is I've got connections and relationships from Florida to Texas to West Virginia and throughout the East Coast in the United States of America within 5 years of coaching. And I think that's afforded to the game of football. So I'm very grateful for that. And I think that's, for me, those are the pillars of developmental coaching. And, Coach, you can stop me anytime.
Yeah, I just want to I wanted to say what ours is because, like, our principal, her whole mission statement is work hard, play hard, take care of each other. And we believe that, but we believe that, like, one, we're going to change lives. 2, we're going to help get them to the next level, whatever that means, college football, trade school, military. And then the 3rd one is compete for championships.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's good that you are so young and you already have this like written down,
Right.
and that's because of coaching with all these different guys at all these different places, right? Because it's not normal for somebody your age to have something that's this thorough.
Yes,
So
sir.
was that why?
Yes, sir. No question. Garnering the experience. I think experience is the best teacher, and I think there's something to writing down your thoughts and ideas. It kind of becomes ingrained within you. Coach Cheetah or Coach Derek Jones, he has his man's rule up here and his Cheetah laws and the things that are fundamentals. Coach Pry has his in the meeting room as well. And I think there's something to just writing down what it is you believe in and forcing people to read it, and it gets re-ingrained over time. And so I've learned that, in the 5 years I've been in coaching. And so I try to put it to paper so I can read it and visualize what it is that I believe.
Would you go over Cheetahs, Coach
Black-
Cheetahs? Would he care if you went over them?
No, he wouldn't care. Not at all.
Yeah.
I'll say his main one, and it's the man's rule. And he teaches this to every single cornerback or cheetah, as he likes to call him, that he coaches throughout his career. And the man's rule is simply be where you're supposed to be, doing what you're supposed to be doing as well as you can possibly do it. And again, that's a testament to manhood. The rule is literally called the man's rule. It's not called the cornerback's rule. It's not called the Heisman Trophy winner's rule. It's called the man's rule. And so it's a testament to coach saying, I'm gonna affect the heart of the man first, and the football player will obviously coincide with that. And so I love the fact that he emphasizes that on a daily basis. And one thing he does is kind of unique is if the guys mess up or they fall short in any type of way, he makes them write that sentence 25 times, 50 times, and hand it in. So I think that's, like I said, putting pen to paper and visualizing what it is that you believe in. So I think that's big. Moving forward, my coaching philosophy is very simple. And to me, it's the 5 C's. And that, as you can see right here, is care, coachable, commitment, consistency, and compete. The first one is care. And I think the first one has to be care because you can't do the 4 that follow if you don't care. So as you can see, the question in the white below, how much do you care? How much do you care to make a difference? I have a younger brother who plays college football at Chowan University right now. He's Division II, and he plays linebacker. And I always ask him, like, you're not at the Division I level, but you have aspirations of playing professional football. What are you doing to separate yourself? Everybody's going to practice. Everybody's watching film. Everybody's doing drills. Everybody lifts weights. So if you care more than others, if you desire to get there more than others, how? Show me that you care. What are you doing? What are the actions that you're taking to show that you care more than, per se, the linebacker at NC State? What are you doing differently than he's doing? And so for me, the number one thing is, for my coaching philosophy, how much do you care? Secondly, it's being coachable. That's the name of the game. I think that all great players love being coached. All great players love being coached. It's always, coach, what can I do to improve? Coach, how can I be better? And not only asking the question, but being receptive of the answer. A lot of people ask the question, Coach, how can I get stronger? Coach, how can I get faster? Coach, how can I get the scholarship? Coach, how can I start both ways? And then they get the answer, and it's not what they wanted to hear or what they thought they were going to hear. And so they down talk coach, or they talk about coach to mom and dad or to their friends or behind his back. So the second thing, after you wouldn't ask the question if you didn't care. So you already checked the box of caring. Once you've asked the question, you got to be receptive of the answer. You got to be receptive of being coached. And on the field, you got to be receptive of, sometimes you're going to hear things that you might not agree with the coach. The coach might say you should have took that step, and you're thinking, man, I know my body better than anyone. He don't know what he's talking about. You gotta respect coach. Right back to what I said earlier. I'm going to coach you with respect, so I'm expected in return. You got to respect coach and be coachable. Thirdly, commitment. It's great to care and it's great to be coachable, right? You can care with the best of them, and you can listen to coach all you want. But if you only listen to coach 2 times out of 7, you're doing yourself a disservice, right? And it shows that you're not committed. The best players, the great players, not the good ones, but the great ones, the Kobe Bryants of the world, the Michael Jordans of the world, the LeBron James of the world. And I'm using some basketball players right now, but obviously the ones that really truly separate themselves are committed to consistency. And that's the next C, which is just a day in, day out grind that regardless of how I feel, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to do it whether I'm sick. I'm going to do it whether my stomach hurts. I'm going to do it whether I got some extra homework that I procrastinated on. I'm going to do it whether the guys want to go hang out and eat some wings. I'm going to be committed and consistent in the things that I desire to improve upon. And then lastly, and maybe most importantly, save the best for last, is compete. Competition. Competition drives greatness. Competition is what allows me to be on this video right now, whether it be in the classroom, and I don't just say that as someone who didn't do that. I had a 3.8 GPA in undergrad and a 4.0 GPA at Florida State. Not because I'm smart, because I'm no smarter than the next football coach, but because I compete. I have a desire. If I'm going to be in the room learning, I want to learn it the best. If I'm going to be in the room taking a test, I want to have the best score. Just like when you run the 40, just like when you lift weights, just like when you do one-on-ones. You don't want to lose one-on-one, so why would I want to lose in a test? Why would I want to come second in a quiz? I don't cheat myself, right? So for me, the 5 C's, again, just to reiterate, how much do you care? How coachable are you? How committed are you to improving and being consistent, which is the next C, is consistency. And last but not least, obviously, compete. And then again, the quote that I kind of nudged upon earlier was, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Back again to the first C. I'll touch base on this, and then we can dig into receiver play. I got some recruiting stuff on here too. Maybe if we have some time at the end, I'll touch base on that. So the water mentality, and I tell this to the guys, and this is a free gem for anybody that desires to listen to this, because it's very unique. And for me, I love to use this in places that are different from where, or different from a demographic standpoint of where I coach. So say, for instance, I was at West Virginia State, a very rural area, obviously in the mountains of West Virginia, but I was recruiting your school, coach, in the outskirts of Richmond, Virginia, right? There's a very different demographic there. There's a very different, unique living situation that you're gonna experience leaving Richmond, Virginia, and going to Charleston, West Virginia. So you got to ask yourself, as a coach, how am I going to convince, for lack of better terms, a young man to change his circumstances and go somewhere that's very different than what he's used to? Why would he want to do that? Again, why would he want to buy in to what I'm selling, right? And for me, it's this theory, and I call it the water mentality.
And you remember when you first read this,
Yeah.
like this is Taoism. This is Bruce Lee. And
Yes, sir.
Great quote of Bruce Lee talking about this.
Yes, sir.
Be like water. So like this really, like when you said this to the players, I was like, okay, I dig on this. So
yes, sir.
That with everybody.
My stepfather he was big in martial arts, like black belt, and he actually kind of taught me this when I was younger, and it stuck with me. To start off, if you put water in a pool, it takes the shape of the pool. If you put water in a toilet bowl, it takes the shape of a toilet bowl. Put it in a fish bowl, it takes the shape of a fish bowl. You put it in a glass, as you can see pictured, it takes the shape of the glass. And I think that is a analogy that says, I've been in 5 different places in 5 years. If you're weak-minded, feeble-minded, you're not going to last. You're going to have coaches that have conflicting beliefs, right? But you have to have adaptability. You have to be able to adjust and fit into the circumstance. You have to be able to fit in at Morgan State as an HBCU with different resources than Florida State and Virginia Tech, and West Virginia State, where I was the head equipment coordinator, the passing game coordinator, the wide receiver coach. My best friend was the O-line coach, the head academic coordinator, the offensive recruiting coordinator, all at once. You're wearing all these different hats. Where you come here and I'm the defensive back graduate assistant, focus on the defensive backs, recruit the defensive backs. Well, if I took the mindset of I got to wear all these hats to Virginia Tech, a lot of people would be angry with me. If I was trying to tell, our equipment coordinator, our head equipment manager, this is how you need to pass out stuff, he'd be like, oh, wait a second, young man, that's not in your line of work, right? So you got to be able to fit into any circumstance and excel, right? Bryce Young, for example. Bryce Young's from California. He plays quarterback at the University of Alabama. There's obviously a large a gap in not only in geographical miles, but also in demographic. You know, Tuscaloosa looks a lot different than LA, but he can fit in and he can buy into what Coach Saban's selling, and then his teammates follow, and he's excelled in his career there. And the second part of this, I think, is what kind of gets away from what Bruce Lee talked about, and I kind of made it into my own. And it's water can coexist with different forms of water. And what I mean by that is there's 3 states of water, obviously, liquid, solid, and gas, right? So liquid water is obviously the water form we're talking about. Solid would be ice, and then gas would be like steam, right? So what do you mean, Coach Ham? What do you mean when you say coexist with different forms of water, right? So for me, this is kind of a leadership style, right? So water's fluid, right? It's moving, and like I said, it can take form of whatever you put around it. All right, so ice is solid. Ice is hard. If you have enough ice, it can be very powerful, right? So from an analogical standpoint, for me, this is let's think of a young man that's rough around the edges, or just made a mistake, or that's very aggravated with himself and the results that he's had after a play or after a game, right? And you're his teammate, right? So for me, he's solid. He's rough around the edges. Like ice is not permeable until you melt it down. So you can't get in. You can't really dig in and get to him because he's aggravated with himself, right? So then that for me, that brings upon the third form, which is the steam, the gaseous form, where if you try to punch steam, your hand goes right through it, right? So I think you have to match it. You have to match those things. You have to be. Sometimes you can't meet ice with ice. You're gonna bounce off each other. If you're screaming at a guy that's already got his wall up, you're not gonna create any growth. So sometimes you have to be in a permeable state and say, "Look, man, put your arm around the shoulder. I know you dropped that pass on third down and 3, and now we got to punt and depend on the defense. But that's okay. You know why? Because you're the same one who caught it on first down to get us in 3rd and 3 situation. So pick your chin up, big dog. We're gonna live another down. And I think that type of leadership style, being able to coexist and understand. Sometimes I'm gonna be the gas state where I need to be able to, coexist with a teammate who's tough. Sometimes I'm gonna be aggravated, and I need my teammate to be in that state and in a liquid form to be able to, deal with me in a situation where I'm not usually this type of demeanor, right? So for me, the water mentality is number one, being able to fit in any circumstance. And the second part is being able to coexist with different forms of water, which is just a reflection of people and the different emotions that they go through on an everyday basis. So
that made me think of the receiver from the Giants. I don't know if you watched the game, Slayton, when he missed that ball on 3rd down, that crossing route. It could have cost his team the game, but Coach Dayball, he went over to him and he picked him up, and the other teammates were going up saying, "Hey, man, get your chin up." I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, sir.
Yesterday. And then, the water can coexist. It reminds me of a podcast we did last week with Cantrell Tyson, who's the head coach of Pensacola, Florida.
Yep.
And when he took the job, he said that a $20 bill is still a $20 bill. It doesn't matter if it's crinkled up. It doesn't matter if it's perfect. It doesn't matter if it's folded up. So it kind of makes me, think of the same analogy that water can coexist in many forms. Just like a $20 bill can coexist in many forms, but it's still a $20 bill.
Yes, sir. I love that. The $20 bill, $20 bill. I like that.
He's talking about that program at Pensacola. I think they won 6 state championships.
Okay.
They haven't had a winning season since like 2010 or something. So it was pretty good. I never heard of that either.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that. That's good. That's big time. So now, Coach, I know I've talked enough as a young coach about culture and what it means to be a coach and those things. And now I kind of just want to dig into, to receiver play. So let me move forward here.
I mean, I think it's great that you're learning both sides of the ball.
Yes, sir.
That's one thing that some coaches don't do. And they say that the greats, they know both sides of the ball.
Yes,
Josh McDaniels, they
Right.
said he knows defense better than most defensive coaches, or like Matt Patricia was able to go from being, defensive coordinator, head coach, now offensive coordinator. So that's pretty awesome that you're coaching both sides of the ball. I know Chip Kelly, I believe, also coaches both sides of the ball. So can you speak to that a little bit? I mean, because you've gotten outside of your comfort zone.
No question.
Nothing. I was at 6 different schools in 6 years, and it really teaches you a lot about yourself and who you are when you're in a different situation every year. But you've been outside of your comfort zone. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no question. I think that as a human, in order to grow, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. The game of football taught me that. It taught me that you want to get muscles. Okay, well, you're gonna have to lift weights. Anybody who lifts weights understands that lifting is not usually fun. It hurts, right? And if it doesn't hurt, you probably ain't doing it right, right? So, but that hurt, that pain comes with growth, right? So I think that I kind of take that same mindset as I had as a player and apply it to coaching, right? And switching to defensive backs doesn't necessarily hurt, but it does come with a growth period where it's like, wow, okay, I'm not comfortable. I don't know this like the back of my hand as I do wide receivers. I got to go back to being elementary and fundamental in my learning process and write down everything and take notes on everything that Coach Jones and Coach Marv and Coach Price say and try my best to convey the same message when it's my turn to stand in front of the room. And more than anything, which is semi-obvious, is that cornerbacks go against wide receivers every play. And the more that I can understand how receivers are leaving themselves susceptible to being attacked and how they can attack a cornerback, the better off I'll be as a coach. And the best way to do that is spend some time with some corners and see, how their thought process works, how they try to schematically defend the receiver, how they try to beat him through mindset and technique. And so in doing that, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about defense. To me, Coach Pry is the best defensive coach in the country. And I think his pupils and his work speak for themselves. I don't just say that because I work for him. I mean, he coached Michael Parsons. Michael Parsons is probably the best defensive player in the NFL right now. So it speaks for itself. And I think learning from him, along with Coach Marv and Coach Jones, for me, has helped me develop so much and helped me understand how to be a better receiver coach. So I've learned a lot in that process. So yeah, moving forward, you see here the prototype receiver, and it kind of speaks to everything that you would look for, from mindset, size to hands, releases, speed, and routes. And and I showed this to someone one time, and they said, "Yeah, if you can find me somebody with all those things, you're doing a pretty good job. If he has a mindset of Larry Fitzgerald and the speed of Tyreek Hill, you're doing a pretty good job."
Well, there was one that he was the gold standard.
Yes, sir. That's the best one.
Do you know who that is? Who is that to you?
To me, that's Jerry Rice.
Okay, right on. Because I was going to say Randy Moss.
Okay,
he's everything up there, but Rice has that heart and that work ethic, man.
Right.
Unparalleled. But yeah, the Jerry Rice thing can't beat him. I'll take him too.
I love Randy Moss. Randy Moss. I got the little figures of him in my room back home at my mom's house. I looked up to him a lot growing up.
Right on, man.
But like I said, the consistency of Jerry Rice is something that's undebatable. He's one of one. And I don't put this up here to say I look for a receiver when I'm recruiting that encompasses the hands of Odell Beckham and the size of Calvin Johnson. You're not going to find that. But what I do say is look through these 6 points and determine, what is your strong suit. If your strong suit is speed, then study the game of Tyreek Hill. If your strong suit is making contested catches and having great hands, study the game of Odell Beckham. If your strong suit is, okay, coach, I'm not the fastest and I'm not the biggest, and sometimes I drop the ball. So your strong suit is your mindset. Well, study the game of Larry Fitzgerald, right? What allowed him to play so long? He wasn't a 4-4 guy, right? He wasn't a guy that had the best routes in the world history. Now, Larry Fitzgerald does have some pretty great hands, right? But I think also his mindset is what allowed him to play so long. Yeah. So you gotta determine, what do I do good, and self-reflect. If you're a big receiver, watch Calvin Johnson. If you have unique releases and people have trouble pressing you, watch Devontae Adams. And then same thing with routes. Amari Cooper is my favorite receiver right now, and that shocks people because they're like, wow, you like Amari Cooper over Devontae Adams, over Stephon Diggs, and I do
Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson's pretty good. It's hard to say. Yeah, Justin Jefferson's pretty good. I got nothing bad to say about Justin Jefferson. I like him a lot as well.
He's out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I saw that they lost. That was crazy. That caught me by surprise. But I love route runners because it's a testament to technique, and I think technique is what causes longevity. Technique creates longevity. When you're just relying on athleticism, it's very difficult to last long once the athleticism starts to match up. Once you work up to the NFL, very rarely is someone out there on the NFL football field and they're just more athletic than everybody out there, right? The best ones have superior technique. If you go back and look at Stephon Diggs 40, he might have ran a 4.5, right? You go back and look at Tom Brady's 40. Obviously, I know it's not important to the quarterback position, but it's probably one of the ugliest things you've ever seen. But his technique as a quarterback and his mindset is what's allowed him to have longevity, right? So with that being said, let's see if we can dig into some of this film, man, and see if I can't share this.
Are you going to share it on that screen or are you going to share it on another screen?
I'm going to try to share it on another screen.
Okay.
No, excuse me, on this screen.
Oh, right on.
Here we go. Okay.
All right. Yeah, I just got to click it.
You got it?
Yeah. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Right on.
So, in the coaching progression, I love to have my drills mirror a play, right? So when I say mirror a play, you don't start off your play and say, okay, I'm going to go run a comeback. You just go run a comeback. There's some things that take place before, right? You have the ability to run a comeback, right? So obviously you hear coaches say this, but it's vitally important to me. And it's getting in a stance. In everything you do, high school coaches, college coaches, if I could impact you in any way, it would be harping on your players to get in a stance on every rep. For me, when I evaluate film, I love to see how a guy gets in a stance because it tells me how serious he takes his job. Once you move up in competition level, whether you go from high school to Division I to the NFL, whatever it may be, that jump, like I said earlier, the athleticism difference becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. So in order to gain an advantage on your opponent, you have to start off as best you can. And the best way to start off is obviously a great stance. So with that being said,
let me ask you something about that.
Yes, sir.
Because you probably didn't get to see it. You're coaching big time college football, but I went to the Washington Commanders versus the Giants game, and this is when Terry McLaurin was off the ball, and then he checked with the referee to go on the ball. Well, the guy shifted, and both of them came set, and then the slot that shifted, he went in motion, and they called Terry McLaurin for. I don't even know what the penalty was, but it was not a penalty because both of them got set before the other guy went in motion.
Right.
Like, did you take a look at that play and like?
Yeah, I know exactly what play you're talking about. That was
what was illegal?
I personally say the
because in the NFL you can't even tell what receivers on the ball or off the ball. Both of them look like they're on the ball all the time.
I believe the penalty was illegal formation, and the ref tried to say that there wasn't 7 guys on the line of scrimmage. And honestly, he just messed up. I mean, Terry McLaurin obviously checked with him and said, where he desired to be, and the ref checked it off. And I don't know what it was that caused him to go back on that. But, yeah, like I said, that was bad.
I mean, just like the penalty at the end of the game, it is what it is. I mean, I was just asking from a receiver coach standpoint, like, what I don't understand what was illegal. He was on the ball. They both came set, and then they shifted. But, hey, I appreciate you answering that for me.
Yeah, and I think it's an example of sometimes, man, like even though he really didn't leave it up to the referee, you want to overemphasize it. You want to make sure that and I think he did. But it's just an example. Sometimes, man, you can't control everything, so you got to focus on controlling the controllables. And when you get opportunity to make a play or make an impact, you do that. So with that being said. I love pre-practice as a wide receiver coach because for me, it's how and you'll hear me say this repetitively throughout this drill tape, and it's how I steal a rep. And what I mean by steal a rep is it allows me the time to practice and emphasize small techniques in a time that's not designated for that to happen, right? So in pre-practice, as you can see here, I have the purpose. Put players in the best position to prepare for a healthy and productive practice. That's number one. What are my indicators as a coach? What am I looking for to determine if I'm getting that accomplished, right? Like I said, you want to have them in a great stance. You want to overemphasize the details. And for me as a receiver coach, I love this. I put this in place at West Virginia State. Just something I thought of. we had drops one week, really bad drops, and I'm like, man, how can I just overemphasize those guys getting their eyes to the football, right, and actually doing it on a consistent basis. And it's the 3-second rule in pre-practice. And so when you catch a football in pre-practice, you have to look at the football for 3 seconds before you take your eyes off of it, and that's post-catch. So you're obviously looking it into your hands. Once you catch and tuck, you got to count to 3. So you catching the ball, visualizing it to your hands, catch, tuck, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. What that's done is training your eyes. So when the bullets are flying and everything's going 100 miles an hour, you naturally take your eyes to the football and take your eyes to the tuck. And I think that helps guys on contested catches and making a difference, you know, when the bullets get to flying.
Let me ask you something about that, because I never thought about this until a couple of years ago, and I believe it was the receiver coach at Virginia Tech that came from Rutgers. But I've always taught for the receiver to tuck the ball. But he made a great point, and some high school coaches out there might not know this. Some people might. I mean, it might just be obvious. Maybe I was just too stupid to realize it. But like on a jump ball in the end zone, how a receiver goes up for the ball and he actually holds it up and doesn't tuck it. That was something like I was like, man, that is so obvious. Can you talk just a little bit about that? Because there might be a high school coach or a youth coach out there that might not have ever thought about that.
Right. I think there's 2 things that are important when it comes to jump balls. And the first one is it's kind of funny that you mentioned Terry McLaurin, is because when I teach jump balls, I teach the guys to always jump first. And you ask why jump first. You got to time your jump up. You got to make sure that you jump in a timely manner to give yourself the best chance of catching the football. Well, I say jump first. Why? Because the referee they're humans as well. And when you jump first, what you do is you put in the referee's mind that you have more rights to the football than the next person does, because you're attacking it, right? So that's the first part. You want to jump first. Secondly is it's a little different than a normal catch. On a normal catch, when you're contested, you want to have late hands, right? You want to give the defender the least amount of time possible to put his hands in between yours and distract you from catching the football. A jump ball is a little bit different. You're obviously attacking the football, and it looks more like a rebound, right? So when I catch a jump ball, right, obviously it's going to be above my waist, so my thumbs are going to be on the bottom. I want my thumbs together. As I'm catching with my thumbs together, I catch it. I always want to snatch away, right? If you can look at anybody, I would say the 2 people to look at are Dez Bryant when he's in the NFL with the Cowboys, and what's the guy's name that played for the Texans, and
Calvin Johnson, Hopkins.
DeAndre Hopkins and Dez Bryant are 2 great guys to look at when it comes to jump balls, because they do a outstanding job of jumping first, attacking, and snatching it away. And I think that's what the coach that you mentioned that came from Rutgers is speaking to, not necessarily tucking it, because now you're pulling it towards the defender and giving him a chance to punch up through and obviously disrupt the catch. You want to be able to catch and attack it and snatch it away. And sometimes that means you're not tucking the football. You're keeping the football out and obviously as far away from the defender as you can. So hopefully that kind of gives some guys a technique when it comes to speaking on jump balls. So as you can see here, pre-practice drills, just a ladder drill, the distraction drill, goalpost drill, and then pat and go. And for me, it's a progression. Everything, like I said, I want to coach with a purpose, right? So I do everything with a progression. I don't want to start off with pat and go. Why do I not want to start off with pat and go? Because I haven't got the guys' legs warmed up. I haven't got the guys' eyes warmed up. I haven't got the guys' hands warmed up. So I don't want to just warm them up with saying run and catch. That's not the most intelligent way of going about it. So for me, it's always a progression. So I start off with ladder drills. I always want to get their feet going, raise their heart rate, and as you can see, engage quick twitch muscles, right? And then you know as a coach what the indicators are on ladder drills. But like I said, you want to overemphasize, always starting with a proper stance. And then when it comes to these drills in pre-practice, emphasizing the finish. Distraction drills are a little different. Now I want to engage the hand-eye coordination and imitate, tracking the football with distractions. And then the next one is obviously goalpost drill, which now I'm engaging the hands again, but now I'm starting to implement body control. So I'm adjusting to the football when it's not always thrown in the perfect position. And then lastly, I get into pat and go. So now I've started off with feet, I've utilized distraction, and I've utilized body control. So now when they run that little fade route, it's much easier because they've progressed to getting there and they've trained those muscles. So you'll see on this film here, this is just me emphasizing the stance and start drill. So I got the guy standing still. Let me go back. And this is tough because the way this video is set up, it rewinds 10 seconds. So bear with me. So in this stance and start drill, let me see if I can pause it at the right time. All right. I want the guys in a good stance, right? A lot of coaches teach knee over toe, right? For me, I always teach 80-20, right? 80% of my weight on the front foot, 20% on my back foot. And the cheat code is you want to raise your front heel. What Mike Norvell said is claw grass, right? And essentially that eradicates false steps, which is moving my front foot, and bucket steps, which is moving my back foot before going forward, right? So what I do here is I drop a tennis ball from about shoulder level of the receiver, and it bounces off the ground, and it's their job to catch it before it can bounce again. So in this drill, I'm stealing a rep. What am I stealing? I'm stealing hand-eye coordination. I'm stealing stance and start, all in one drill that they can do with tennis shoes on before they even go out to practice. So you see it here, and they're doing a good job there.
And this is something every high school coach can implement in their off season, or rec coach,
Exactly. And like I said, over my stage, you see the 80-20 rule, claw grass. I didn't speak on the hands, right? And the hands, a lot of guys, they take the Odell Beckham approach, which is just crossing their arms and, leaning on that front knee, which is I'm great with. I'm okay with, because I understand when receivers run more than anybody on the field. So I understand that as someone who played it. But when you're getting pressed, press coverage is a fight. It's a boxing match. And if you got your hands down in a boxing match, you ain't going to last long unless you're Muhammad Ali, right? So instead of trying to be Muhammad Ali, let's be Floyd Mayweather and be defensive, but also offensive in our approach, where we're gonna initiate the contact. We're not afraid to initiate the contact, but in order to do that, let's have our hands up and be ready to fight. So I didn't speak on that in the stance, but that's something else that I wanna implement.
So what receiver would you study? You mentioned Odell Beckham with crossing his hands. Who do you think has a great stance that maybe coaches could study?
I think that Devontae Adams does a great job of being in a good stance. He's a taller receiver, so it's tough. It's tough to kind of, like, if you're a 5'10" guy, you want to watch the 5'10" guys.
Okay.
But if I'm under 6 foot, Jalen Waddle's a good one to look at. Terry McLaurin's a great one to look at, like you mentioned earlier. Those are some of the guys that come to mind. If I'm over 6 foot, Amari Cooper, like I spoke on earlier, Stephon Diggs. Just the ones you see having success. They're having success because they do these little things the right way. Even Adam Thielen, guys like that. Justin Jefferson is another great one that plays with great pad level at all times. Jerry Jeudy, just to name off some guys, but the majority of those NFL guys, man, they do things the right way. Sometimes I went to a camp when I was in high school and I was coached up by an NFL player. I forget his name right now. He escapes me right now, but I was playing quarterback in high school, and he told me some guys are strong enough to do it wrong. You watch Cam Newton, and everything Cam Newton does is not technically sound. But how many Cam Newtons are there? There's not too many people that are 6'6", 230,
no,
and run a 4.5. So I don't know if I want to model my game after Cam Newton. I probably want to model my game after someone who's not the most athletic. So then my athleticism shines because I have great technique. And then, like I said, that technique leads to longevity. Right, so for me, as you
Jerry Rice. He's got to be the match.
Jerry Rice is the immaculate. You want to talk about?
Let me ask you, Jerry Rice or player Dion? Who you taking? I guess there's a lot of one-on-ones with them, out there.
I'm a receiver, man. Give me Jerry Rice. I know that Deion Sanders is a much better athlete, and if I'm an owner, I might take Deion Sanders because he gives me special teams value. He brings that confidence. He's marketable. I get that. But Jerry Rice is a winner. Deion is a winner too. He won a Super Bowl as well. But Jerry Rice won multiple Super Bowls, and
he pretty much stayed with one team other than the Raiders at the end of his career, I believe.
Essentially stayed with one team, and his records just are untouchable. Like, it's over 20,000 yards receiving, and now they pass the ball 50 times a game, and still nobody's even close. So,
wow,
I gotta go with Jerry Rice. But if you gave me Deion Sanders, I'm
He's
winning.
not bad. He's not a bad corner. I mean, one of the top 3 probably of all time.
You're winning regardless. So, with that being said, as you can see here, there's some stance to start reps, and I use this hurdle here. Why? Because it's an easy indicator if those guys are false stepping or bucket stepping. So it's very difficult to false step with this ladder, with this hurdle in front of them, because they'll knock it over, right? And also it forces them to have knee drive. And I think very important to the receiver position is sell the 9 route. And what I mean by the 9 route, when you look at the route tree, the 9 is just a vertical. Sell the ghost. Sell like you're running deep. Sell like you're trying to burn them. You're trying to beat them on every play and run by them. And what that does is it creates consistency. Receiver is very similar to being an actor. You want the defender to think you're going one way, and in reality, you're going another. And the cheat code that you have is you know which way you're going, right? So you want to sell that 9 route every chance you get. And for me, one of the best ways to do that is to have great knee drive. And if you want to look at someone who does that extremely well, it's Julio Jones. So, and then also in this rep, right? So I got my stance to start, but I'm still in the rep at the top of the route. I'm not just going to have my guys do stance to start without giving them some top of the route to work on at the end.
Shout out to Coach Moten, my assistant head coach, right-hand man at LC Bird, for hitting us up on the chat. If you need a question for Coach, we'll answer. Just hit us up on the YouTube comment section. So, Coach Moten, thank you for tuning in.
What's up, Coach Moten?
All right, he's got a question. It was just answered about crossing hands in the stance. So that's that crossing the hands in the stance, Coach. That all comes from Odell.
For me, I'm sure it was done before him. I don't want to give him all the credit, but I noticed when he got popularized, a lot more guys, including myself, started to get with that stance. And it does a couple things. It allows you to play with good pad level, because in order to have your arms crossed on your knee, you got to have some sort of bend at the waist. And secondly, like I said, the receivers run more than anybody on the field. So it allows you to rest a little bit. And then thirdly, with that bend at the waist, you're visualizing the football. So you're looking in and you're seeing the football, and you're kind of getting a glimpse of, when the ball snapped. So the technician in me says don't do it, because you're going to have to uncross them before you can run forward. But the receiver in me is someone who's had experience in doing it, understands it. So I think you got to be that's a perk that comes with playing the position, and having done it myself, that you don't want to overcoach. You want to allow your guys to do what's comfortable, but also implement the techniques that are going to help them out.
And one thing that you mentioned is studying other guys. I mean, as a high school coach, you could study like the great teams like Highland Springs, Dinwiddie. Watch their tape and how their coaches coach it, because those guys, they do it the right way. I never really thought of that, but Dinwiddie or Highland Springs would be a great, some great programs to look at.
Yeah, without question, Coach Lauren Johnson and the coach at Dinwiddie both do a great job. And I've been in those schools, and their records speak for themselves. And I'll pause it and say this: I think that college coaches can learn a lot from high school coaches. High school is where you see the innovation in the game of football, especially from an offensive standpoint, from formations to plays to schematics, just in its totality. You see it a lot on the high school level first. And Coach, that being a high school head coach. So I think that college coaches got to be humble and not feeling as though that they know everything. You can learn a lot from high school coaches, and I think that I just went back and studied. I went to Lord Botetourt over my Christmas break with my high school coach, and shoot, I studied run game. I was like, man, how can I help? How can I help?
Run it, man.
So that's my belief.
I just want to say something, because what you just said is being a college coach and being humble. The greatest recruiters ever in the Richmond area were guys like Jim Reed and Jim Cavanaugh and Coach Hansen. And these guys, even though they were coaching at some big schools, they always were able to come into those high schools. Bill D comes to mind, who was at Phoebus and ODU. They're able to relate to the high school coaches, and they make you feel like that you are one of them and they are one of you. And that's your ability to build relationships too, AJ. and that's why you're going to be so successful.
Yes,
So
sir.
I just wanted to say that to all the college coaches that are watching, how important y'all are to the high school coaches.
Yeah, without question, coach. It just goes back to, being exactly what it is that you want your players to be. And like I said, if you want your players to be respectful, you got to be respectful in yourself. And sometimes respect is synonymous with humility and understanding that you're a college coach, but you're not far from being a high school coach, and a high school coach ain't far from being a college coach. It's not much difference. It's the title changes. So
we always say, like, there's an old saying: high school coaches want to go to college want to go to the NFL, and NFL want to go back to high school.
Right, exactly.
That's I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Exactly, coach. I'm just letting the tape play here, so you can see some of the pre-practice drills and how they showed up.
That's a good play right there.
No question. We called that play S shoot.
That was number 2, just down the middle of the field on cover 2, like inside the safety.
Yes, sir. So right here, you're just seeing the guys working the over shoulder. This is how the pat and go shows up. Just tracking the football. A lot of coaches teach over the shoulder. You want to catch it above your eyes so it doesn't change level.
Well, that was a great adjustment, yeah.
My main thing is just getting that inside hand. You want to force that inside hand to the football. That outside hand's going to be there. Force that inside hand. You see, great throw, great catch right there in the middle of the field. Got some good examples here. My guys were balling out at West Virginia State, doing a good job.
And Coach John Pennington, a good friend of mine, is the head coach there and does a great job.
Yes, sir. I'm very appreciative of Coach Penn. He gave me my first chance, my first position room, and allowed me to have the film to do something like this. So I'm very thankful and appreciative of him. And somebody else, he's another guy that's huge on culture. Wrote a whole book on it.
Mm-hmm. You got a doctorate.
Yep, definitely. He's got his doctorate as well. Very intelligent individual. So moving forward from stances onto releases, and just a reminder of the coaching progression. Like, what comes after a stance in a play is obviously my release. So I wouldn't go from stance and starts to catching the football, because there's things that exist within a play that have to take place before I can get there. Right. So I want to teach my drills in the same order that a play goes. And I learned that from Coach Ron Dugan's, receiver coach at Florida State. Right. I don't want to jump from catching the ball and then work stance and then work releases. That doesn't make much sense. I want to teach in a progression that mirrors a play. So after I teach stance and I overemphasize stance, I work releases that day. And here you can read it, take a screenshot of it, whatever that may be. Purpose: train the proper techniques to win against a defensive player who's trying to impede your route. Indicator: how much separation your player's getting from the defender. You want to look for suddenness. You want to look for a calculated approach. And to me, that's just having a plan. Proactivity and reactivity. And I think that's important. I got to stop and touch base on that. I'm a firm believer that a person that's reacting in football is often losing, right? So what we say on defense here at Virginia Tech is track and attack. And what that means is you set the tone. You don't allow the running back to determine what type of cut he wants to make on you. You just attack that inside hip and go full speed and expect your teammate to be there, right? And use the sideline as your friend. But what that essentially doing is telling the young man, take the reaction out of it. I want you to react when the ball declares itself, obviously, but I don't want you sitting and waiting, chopping down and seeing, okay, once he jukes, this is what I'm going to do. Don't even give him the opportunity to juke. So I take that same approach to coaching receivers. Don't give the defender the opportunity to jump jam you, jump jam him. And that's the equivalent of being proactive, right? So you see proactivity and reactivity. And then when to apply when facing defenders who are trying to use force to impede your route timing. So,
yeah, and Stefan, I don't know if Logan is a player or not, but Coach can't comment on any players. I don't know if that's a friend of yours, Stefan Smith, Coach, but I know that's a player. You can't comment on that. So if you want to clarify in the comments, Stefan, I appreciate that. Coach Moten's asking about tennis ball. Is tennis ball toss back and forward a good tool for hand-eye coordination? I mean, is that more of an off-season thing, or is that during the season using the tennis balls?
So I think that, one, tennis balls are affordable and easily accessible.
A lot more affordable than footballs.
Right. So I would say this: if you have the resources to get miniature footballs, use miniature footballs.
I mean, you can go to five and below.
Right.
And get a bunch of miniature footballs.
If you can use miniature footballs, I think that's great because you're working the small eye coordination of tracking the laces, tracking the stripe on the ball, and the shape matters. But if not, I do believe that tennis ball is more off season. The best way to learn how to catch a football, and this might sound kind of is catch a football.
Amen to that.
Catch a football,
it's kind of like coaches talking about cone drills all the time. And some people are like they're anti-cone drills because there's no cones on the field.
Right, and I understand that. Now you do want to train small motor skills. Like catching a tennis ball does what? You're using a smaller ball, right? You got to train your eye focus and really lock in to watch it. But at the end of the day, you don't catch a tennis ball. So I see both sides. I think it's an off-season drill that trains eye focus, and if you can catch as many footballs as you can on daily. And I think we did something at Florida State. It was like 60 catches a day, I believe, for like 2 months is maybe 10,000 catches, something like that. And 10,000 reps builds new muscle memory. So for me, coach, catch as many footballs as you can. Tennis balls only help. So back to releases, and thank you for that question. Back to releases. So when I coach releases, coach, I teach it like boxing, right? So in boxing, right, if you think of a jab, that's a one punch, right? And this also, let me go back. I teach it like boxing, and I want them to think of boxing because why? Boxing incorporates being proactive and also being reactive. So back to what I said earlier, but to go forward, so a jab is obviously a one-step punch. Combo would be 2 steps or more, and then mow grass. All right. So what I mean by one-step punch, right? So when to incorporate this, I think is most important. When looking at a jab, I tell guys, okay, if I'm boxing and I can beat somebody up with a jab, that means they probably can't fight as good as me, right? I'm probably overpowering them. So when you're looking at football and you're thinking from a receiver standpoint, if I can beat someone and I can fool them with a one hard step, I'm probably more athletic than them, or I'm more talented than them. And in that situation, right, that's fine. Be able to evaluate that and not waste time. There's no point in using a combo if you know that I'm athletically superior to this person, right? So that obviously comes into calculating your opponent. Secondly, combo. So if you think of boxing, if I'm using combos and 2 pieces and I'm bobbing and weaving and doing all these things, that means the person I'm going against probably has something to him as well, right? So if you take that to the receiver, if I got to use 2 steps releases and I got to use all these head fakes, then that means I'm giving a lot of respect to the person that I'm going against because I was blessed to play quarterback in high school, and you don't have much time back there. So the more time that you utilize at the line of scrimmage, the less time you have to get into your route. Right, so if you're using a lot of time at your line of scrimmage, you better be going against a football player that's pretty good. And thirdly is mow grass. And the way that I learned this from the receiver coach at Alabama, Homer Wiggins, and he says mow grass. And what that essentially means is if I'm in a boxing ring and I throw punches from the other side of the ring and he's on the other side of the ring, I'm never going to hit him. And the same thing exists in releases. If I'm doing all these combo releases and these jabs and these head fakes, but the guy standing 4 yards away, it's going to be very hard to get his hips to move perpendicular to the line of scrimmage. So I got to mow the grass. I got to cut down that space in between us, use the short choppy steps in order to eradicate the cushion in between us, and then I use my jab or my combo. So with that being said, let's watch the drills. And this is sorry for the coach who said he didn't want to watch a lot of cone drills, but this is some of my cone drills. So you see the jab step. You see the jab step here. Just one step. Boom. You also see the arm movement. You want to decrease the surface area that the defender has to put hands on you. So always think of it like this. If the corner paints his hand red, you don't want to have any red paint on the front of your jersey. If it gets anywhere, it should be your shoulder pads or your back.
Let me ask you this, because I had one of my friends who coaches offensive line on the podcast we did with the DB coach from Colorado, and he made a good point. Being a receiver and coming off the ball, it's almost like being a pass rusher and having to get around an offensive lineman. and the corner's kind of like the offensive lineman. So, just think it's almost like the same skills as being a receiver coming off the ball and being a defensive lineman and having to get to the quarterback. And that got, have you ever heard anything like this? I mean, I guess it's breaking down the game so elementary.
Yeah, no question. I live with Corey Rush, who's got some big news here coming up soon, and he was a defensive line graduate assistant here at Virginia Tech. And me and him talked about it all the time. There's so many parallels that exist in defensive line play and wide receiver, from stance to the use of your hands, to having to play with your eyes up, to having a motor. All those things kind of exist. I think the main difference is obviously catching the football and for them finishing with the tackle. But there's so many similarities that exist between those two positions. And that's why you see a lot of the great defensive ends play wide receiver in high school, because the body types are very similar. So, yeah, I 100% agree with that, Coach. So you see my guy over here on the right, Luke Gatson, working the release, catching the ball, great catch. So now we work this Mo Grass, which just means, like I said, this defender standing here with flip-flop on. He's the equivalent of a corner playing kind of like a catch technique, 4 yards off. Maybe he's a cloud corner, something to that nature. Right? I don't want to use all my releases here at the line of scrimmage. That makes no sense. I got to attack him, right, and force him to protect that leverage. So we mow grass and we work a head fake, and we steal a rep by still catching the over-shoulder throw.
When you say mow grass, what exactly does that mean? Like, you probably already said it, but
So you see the defender right here, the guy right here with the white socks on in the slides. My receiver's right here on the 20-yard line. So what we're trying to do is essentially create a situation that parallels maybe cloud coverage, trap coverage, or any type of maybe two-man under coverage where the corner's not playing press right in his face, but he's not playing what we call soft or off coverage either.
Yeah.
He's playing squat coverage. And in squat coverage, he can still be playing man. And if he's playing man with squat coverage, you hear a lot of corner coaches say, motor mirror technique. If he's doing that, I want to decrease the grass that's in between us before I work a move. It makes no sense to work a move here and allow his hips to stay parallel. While his hips stay parallel, he can flatten me, and now I can't get open, whether it's to the sideline or it's towards the quarterback in the line of scrimmage. He can flatten me, right? So as a receiver, my main goal is to get the defender's hips working perpendicular to the line of scrimmage. I want to force him to open left and right. And in order to do that, I gotta close this space between us, right? So that's what I mean by mow the grass. Go ahead and cut this grass down between us and then work a move, right? And this guy back here, he's kind of like a second-level defender. So you can use your slots and your outside receivers in the same drill. Second-level defender, break the wrist, and right, so I'm still in reps in every single drill. I'm trying to incorporate as much as I can and also get a catch. So mow the grass, break the wrist, catch an over-the-shoulder ball. So now here we're mowing the grass, we're working the jab step, and kind of just to change the tempo. One thing that I love about receiver play is it all looks different, right? We've talked about probably 25 different receivers today, and Calvin Johnson's a Hall of Fame type receiver, and Tyreek Hill probably is too. One of them 6'6", and one of them probably 5'6". And the unique thing about receiver is you can make it your own. You can make your routes your own. Like Justin Jefferson doesn't run his routes the same way Wes Welker did. Wes Welker doesn't run his routes the same way Jerry Rice did. Jerry Rice doesn't run the same way Randy Moss did, or Terrell Owens did. And you have to be willing as a receiver coach to say, okay, these guys also have to have their own spice, their own character to play in their game. And so this drill kind of just incorporates, okay, I want to mow the grass. I want to work jab steps. But in the end, throw your own flavor on it. Change the tempo in your route. One thing that I learned playing at the University of Mount Union is you don't want to always go. You hear coaches, remember I said earlier, sell the non-route. You hear coaches often say go from 0 to 100 miles per hour. Well, in receiver play, remember that you're trying to deceive the defensive back. So oftentimes it's best to go from 0 to 80, burst from 80 to 100, then go back to 0. Go from 0 to 60, burst from 60 to 80, go back to 0, and play with your speeds. The more that you have the ability to deceive and make it look like you're going 100 miles per hour when you're really in control, the better off you are. So this drill kind of incorporates that. Still a catch every time.
Yeah, because every time you stutter, that defensive back is going to stutter.
Correct.
It's like he doesn't really know.
Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the top of the routes and breaks.
Let me ask you this, because I had a former player ask me this.
Yep.
Maybe this is just a fan question, but he posted on Facebook. He said, "Why in zone coverage in the NFL do the underneath coverage guys, the nickels or the backers, why do they not get their eyes on the receivers? Why do they keep their eyes on the quarterback?" And I told him, I said, I think it's because you really can't reroute in the NFL like you can in college and high school. And those quarterbacks are so good. If you take your eyes off of the quarterback, he's going to throw the ball where you're not looking. So I know this is kind of off topic, but I was thinking I could answer this for one of my former players,
Yep.
L.A. Lawrence. Is that true? What he's saying?
Coach, I would agree with a lot of what you said there. In the NFL, the hashes are a lot closer. But I think more than anything, those guys have unbelievable awareness, right? They have the most experience. They've been playing the game for over a decade, and so they have ideas of their landmarks, and they don't have to look and visualize their landmarks to understand where they're dropping to, right? And like you said, they're going against the best athletes in the world, so chances of you rerouting are very, very small. When you talk about Terry McLaurin's and Tyreek Hills and Jalen Waddles, it's tough to get those guys, knock those guys off the route. And then secondly, when you're looking at the quarterback, you can deceive the quarterback. Coach Price says deliver routes, right? So that's kind of an inkling of put hands on and get it to the next zone, push it into the next zone, help your teammate out. In the NFL, it's a little different because offensive coordinators can scheme that. So I think that what you said is true. You're not going to get hands on as much, but more than anything, those guys just have unbelievable awareness, and so they don't have to necessarily look at where they're going in order to get there. So but those guys are unique. So like I said, you got to understand what they're strong enough to necessarily do wrong, and what you want to mimic out of their game.
Yeah, so he played for me in high school. So, we always reroute, anything vertical, anything coming inside. So I guess he's just, why aren't they doing that in the NFL? I mean, it's not like the rules, but I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
For that. If anybody else has a question, put it in YouTube or Facebook, but Coach can't talk about any players or recruits. Just X's and O's questions or technique, football stuff.
Yep. So I know we've been on here for a while, so I won't talk your head off, Coach, but I do love this part. So I actually learned this drill from Urban Meyer, and this is the top of the route. So just what I call the breaks. So you got your helmet stripe drill, which is something that I say at all camps, and it's just shampoo. And they say, "What do you mean by shampoo, Coach Hampton?" I say head and shoulders, right? So not only do you want to deceive with your speed, but you also want to deceive with your body demeanor and with your mannerisms, right? So if you can sell with your head and shoulders, like Reggie Bush does so great, like LaShawn McCoy does so great, and many others, the better off you have a chance of creating separation within your route. And then punch kick. That's something that I learned from Urban Meyer, and I'll speak a little bit more on that. And then the rocker drill in the end as well. So we got the helmet stripe drill here, which this is working the shampoo. So every third step, right, if there's a stripe down the middle of my helmet, I want it to hit on both sides of that goal line on every third step.
And this is practicing sticking a guy.
Correct. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I'm just selling with a head fake. Some guys, and also as coaches, they let you know which guys have stiffness. This is a really good job here. And which guys don't. And as you see at the end, it's still catching the football. So what you really want to do is get out of your breaks in 3 steps. On 45-degree angle breaks, you want to get out in 3 steps, right? So let me go back right here, right? So here's enforce getting out of break in 3 purposeful steps. The first step is slam on brakes, right? I'm running fast as I can. If I have a 3-step break, if I'm breaking inward, so let's say it's a curl route, then my slam on break step should be my outside foot. If I'm on a comeback, so I'm breaking outwards towards the sideline, my slam on break step should be my inside foot. So my slam on break step should always be opposite of where I'm trying to go, right? So let's say I'm running the curl. So I'm to the right of the quarterback. I'm running as fast as I can, and I get to my depth, whether that be some coaches say yards, some coaches say steps. Let's say, for instance, it's 12 yards. I want to slam on brakes at around 10 yards, right? So that outside foot, I slam it in the ground. All right, so let's think of it like a car, like a Maserati. If I'm going fast as I can and I slam on the brakes, it's going to be out of control. Well, the same thing is true with your body. If you're going as fast as you can, you slam on brakes, you're going to be out of control. So that second step, it's imperative that you take that inside step and you come to balance, right? So now you should look just like if you were to jump on a vertical. That second step should look just like when you're doing a vertical test, your body demeanor. So now on that third step, I call it the change direction step, and it's imperative on that change direction step that your foot is not straight. You want to have what I call a turn toe. So it's almost like your foot's in a 45-degree angle, right? And what that does is unlock your hips to go in the direction that you want to go. And for the guys that are watching this that may be playing in college, the most important step is actually the gain ground, which is the fourth step. And that's just not stepping underneath of yourself and taking unnecessary steps, because once you go against more talented DBs like Dorian Strong and Mansour Delane and Asante Sim and some of the guys I've got to work with, and you waste time, it's going to be very hard to get open, right? So the drills you're going to see here is I want you to watch the guys try to overemphasize getting out in 3 steps, right? So they do a kind of a weak job of it here, and you'll see me actually try to show them what it looks like. And the PVC pipe is there to kind of determine the angle that I want them to use coming out of their breaks. And as you can see, there's 2 lines. So the line to the right of me, or to the left of me as pictured, is the slot receivers. And the line to this side of me is the outside receiver. So I want to kind of use that in my drills as well.
Do you make guys play both?
Yes, sir. Well, I wouldn't say I made them, but if they had the skill set to do it, it kind of helps you out as an offense.
Let me ask you this, because I have a young receiver who's a freshman, then I have a senior receiver. I mean, in the senior, you really didn't have to coach him. So if he's playing slot on the left and he's going to go run a corner on the left, and he has a walk player or a nickel, I don't know if he's playing man or zone, but if he's going to run a corner to the left, he would inside release on that nickel, and then he would run the corner. Whereas I had a younger receiver where he would run to the left or to the outside of the nickel and then try to run the corner. He'd end up getting knocked off. And I was thinking about, you mowing the grass and then sticking the guy inside.
Right.
Is it maybe I'm going to answer my own question, but if and I never played receiver, I'm a center. So, I got to learn. If I'm the slot on the left, is it better to stick the guy to the inside to the right and then run my corner to the left? Or is it better if I just inside release on that guy, make him turn his shoulders inside and then run the corner? But I guess if you're a speed guy, maybe just inside releasing on him. But if you're not a speed guy, sticking him would be better. Do you understand what I'm saying? Maybe it's too elementary of a question.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. To me, so you kind of see it here. If I can rewind probably a couple seconds, maybe. All right, so after this play, you kind of see the slot stick and slip inside. I don't think he had a corner out on that play specifically. So right here, watch not the guy that's circled, but this guy right here that I'm moving the mouse on.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch him, he kind of sticks the guy, boom, and slips him inside.
Yeah.
Right. My thing is this: when you are running your route, all right. So if you have a guy, if you have a Sam, a nickel who's pushing right to get hands on you, then it's obviously zone coverage. You're not gonna have a guy pushing to get hands on you if it's man coverage, right? So if it's zone coverage, you want to force him to protect whatever area that he's designated to protect, right? So if that Sam or nickel is the hook to curl player, right, I'm going to aim 2 yards outside of him. And now if he overcompensates and says, oh, no, I'm still going to get hands on you, right? What did that do? That allowed me to stick him and slip back inside. And now where am I at? Exactly where I aligned pre-snap. And I don't lose any leverage left or right. If
Yeah.
If he sees me aim 2 yards outside and he doesn't overcompensate, now what I can do is now I'm not getting touched. So now when I pass him as a second level defender, I can get back skinny on the safety and go get my leverage back, and then it becomes in rocker steps and punch kick, which you'll see here in a second on how I beat the safety at the top of my route.
I mean, it's almost just like being a pass rusher, and you're beating that guy to a point,
right,
yards deep, and it's almost like you're a guy with the ball, and you go to stick the guy inside, and the defender doesn't go, then you just go inside, and then if he does go inside, you go outside. So it's
right.
I mean, it's almost like covering a guy in basketball, or
it's very receiver play and basketball are like twins.
Like having the ball in your hands, and
it's
you
like
have to get to the hoop.
Yep.
I think John Morant would be an elite slot receiver.
Elite. I say it all the time.
Gosh.
No question.
I mean, he's going against the best guys in the world. He can go around them, over them, hang up,
right,
come under. I mean,
right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think even on one of your presentations that you had basketball players, didn't you?
Right.
And talking about, could you talk a little bit about that? Because that was fascinating to me, man. Like,
yeah, I think it's so similar. Like, you look at Randy Moss was a great basketball player. Allen Iverson was a great football player. I think the movements are, and maybe this appeals to a high school coach, maybe not. I played every sport in high school. I played basketball, baseball, ran track, football, and I understand guys are now kind of specializing in one sport and trying to maximize. And I understand the benefits that gives to a high school coach. You're getting more time with your player, right? But I will say this, you develop small motor skills that apply within basketball. You're going to develop motor skills that you didn't practice in football that apply to football. And I think that you look at dribbling the ball, it's very similar to deceiving a defensive back. You look at defending someone who's dribbling the ball, it's very similar to standing in front of somebody as a corner and trying not to get beat. There's so many small motor skills that coexist and cross over between those different sports. I think that you see a lot of players, LeBron James, that were good in basketball, and it exists in football, good in football, and it exists in basketball. Stephon Diggs, I know for a fact, said when he works his releases, he thinks of if he has a basketball in his hands and he's trying to get past somebody.
Yeah.
So, I think Justin Jefferson's the same way. So, they parallel each other very, very similar. Here we're just working, getting our hips around, and at the end of it, right, we're going to work contact catch. And you see coaches, the guys go across the field, and obviously it's not the same game that it was even when I was in high school. It's a little different, and rightfully so. But you're still going to get hit at times. Hopefully you get hit in a proper way, but you're still going to get hit. And I'm a firm believer that you can't expect your guys to make plays when you haven't practiced the situation. So you always want to put them in every single situation that you possibly think they can see in the game and practice it, so you can say, okay, at least we went over this. I can expect you to do it. So you see here, my guy's catching the ball away from his body. Look where his hands are. For the young receivers that watch this, if the ball was painted red, none of the red would get on his jersey. Right? He's catching it away from his body, even though he's about to face contact. It's a great job.
And that's your goalpost drill. Like when you put your arms around the goalpost, right?
Correct. Exactly.
You catch the ball away from your body.
Exactly.
Is there a time, like in a wet game, is there ever a time when you would say, because I always hear coach say, I mean, it's monsoon outside, catch it with your hands, sometimes I'm like, man, dude, I mean, like, how about just catch it?
Exactly. And Randy Moss said that on his 30 for 30. I think.
Oh, did he?
The main thing is catch the football, and some guys, I say this, the more separation that you have or you can create, the less that you have to overemphasize catching with your hands. Antonio Brown rarely ever catches the football away from his body with his hands, but that's because he's always wide open. So there's nobody there to be driving on the football to punch it away from him, so he can catch the ball comfortably, in his shoulder pads, in his body, because he's not worried about someone disrupting the catch. If you're a guy that's
he's so fast.
Correct. Now you look at DeAndre Hopkins, he's rarely ever wide open. He's rarely ever wide open. It's usually always a spectacular catch. Why? Because he doesn't create separation. So you got to kind of know who you are, right? Weather conditions regardless, you got to know who you are and say, am I a guy that gets wide open or am I a guy that makes tough catches?
Yeah, because if you're in traffic, you're going to have to catch the ball out there, or either someone's going to go and run in front of it.
Exactly.
So I mean, these are the things like that I pick up on, man. It's almost so simple, but it's what's important.
No question, Coach. No question. And now you can see it here: catch, get hit, good tuck.
And just for the rec coaches out there, or high school kids, or even high school coaches, when the receiver is running towards where the ball is being thrown in a drill like this, it makes it a lot harder on the kid, doesn't it?
No question. It makes it harder to track the football. But you want to emphasize that because, I was blessed. My offensive coordinator at Emory Henry was Timmy Chang, who's now the head coach of Hawaii. And Timmy Chang was one of the best college quarterbacks of all time.
Wow. I think I saw him at the convention.
Yeah.
And he was talking to Coach Newsom, I believe. Maybe it wasn't him.
Probably so. And the thing about playing for him is
I never knew he was at Emory Henry.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite coaches of all time. He's a smart one, no question. And he taught me, when you play receiver, think like a defensive back and think like a quarterback.
When you play receiver, think like a defensive back and think like a quarterback.
Right. So how is a defensive back trying to attack me, and what does my quarterback want me to do? If you can think like that, you're going to have success.
Yeah, that's a run and shoot. I mean, because they're adjusting all the time.
Exactly. Okay. So everything had an option on it.
Yeah, we got a question here from Coach Moten. When do you stalk block or full on block? So Coach Moten, you're talking about like stalk block. I think y'all always stalk block, right? You're not trying to like take someone's head off. You're breaking down, and I guess he's asking like, when y'all do block somebody, is it like a basketball, like getting a guy's way 5 yards off the defender? I guess is Coach Mo. Can you elaborate on that? Or do you know what he's talking about there, Coach, when he says full on block?
I would say, hold on, let me give him this.
You can comment again, Coach Moten. I mean, I think y'all always teach the stalk block, right? Because when a guy goes and tries to like knock a dude down, that's when you whiff. And really, I always tell our guys, like, if you break down 5 yards from the defender and he doesn't come up, we're going to have a big play. But usually they are going to come to you, right?
Right. So when I teach blocking, right,
I think he said yes. So I guess y'all don't teach like trying to take a dude's head off, like just smash.
Correct. There's no point in that anymore in today's game. And if anything, it does nothing more than get you out of position, right? So, Coach, when I teach blocking, the number one thing I teach is know your target zone. So when I say know your target zone, what I mean by that is understand where the ball is supposed to hit. So when I'm blocking on the perimeter, if I'm blocking for inside zone, right, I want to go get inside of my defender and block outward. If I'm blocking for a speed option or a triple option or a halfback pitch or a toss sweep, then I want to get outside of my defender, outside leverage, and block him inwards, right? Allow that running back to have the sideline. Right. So the number one thing is understanding what type of leverage that I want. And that, to me, I say know your target zone. Because what does that tell me? What I'm not doing is seeing the football. When I'm playing receiver, I can't see the run. If I'm watching the run, if I'm looking back and I'm going against a good defender, I'll never be able to block him. So I already have to have a knowledge of where the ball's supposed to hit. Conversely, the defensive back is seeing the run, if it's zone coverage. Right. And if it's man coverage, we can work runoffs and we can do things of that nature. But if it's zone coverage, he's seeing the football. He's understanding where the ball is going and he's seeing it develop. So with my knowledge of understanding where it's going to go, I can already predetermine the leverage that I want to get on him, knowing that he's going to see it and attack it. Right. So with that being said, the key components to me when it comes to blocking are eyes below eyes. Right. So when you're watching your receivers, you want to always say, if I'm looking at you block and your helmet is above the quarterback's helmet, you're doing a bad job. You're doing a poor job. Right. Because now he can get off of you. Right. You can't hold on offense. On defense, you can grab jersey, grab cloth and throw him off one way or another. Right. So I want to have eyes below eyes. right? I want you to see it right here on this third one, most dangerous man indicators. You see it on every single one, right? On the indicators. Eyes below eyes, right? The second one is I want to have my knees inside my ankles. Why do I want to have my knees inside my ankles? Because that's the most athletic position that I can have, right? I always teach blocking like this. Someone in the post has a basketball and they pass it out to the perimeter on the 3-point line, right? And I'm closing out on the 3-point line.
Yeah.
If I close out on the 3-point line full strides and I'm going as fast as I can, he can do a multitude of things. He can pump fake me. He could drive right by me, right? It's very hard for me to contest that shot. What do I need to do? Go from speed to power. So you see that right here in the settling strike drill. Main goal, go from speed to power, right? So how do I go from speed to power? Speed is those long strides when I'm driving out to the 3-point line, when I'm coming out my stance and I'm driving out on that corner route. When I go to power, I got to take short, choppy steps. So I put my feet in the ground, I'm patting my feet and putting my feet in the ground. I want to have my knees inside my ankles. I want to have a reverse arc in my back. I want to have tight hands and tight elbows, right? So when I teach this drill, I learned this from Ron Dugans, right? I teach the receivers to clap first before they block. Why do you clap first? Because in order to clap, your hands have to be together.
Yeah.
So now I'm over emphasizing tight hands and punching inside and getting inside hands.
And who is Coach Dugans?
Coach Dugans is a wide receiver coach at Florida State University.
Okay.
So, Coach, I want to show you this drill that I use, and then you're going to see it show up in the game.
I mean, it's just like playing offensive line and you have to pass block Khalil Mack. You're not going to run right at Khalil Mack. You can let him come to you.
Exactly.
Or I'm not going to run right at John Morant when he's at the top of the key. All he's going to do is just go around me, you know?
Right. And I think it's a fine line, and you don't want to catch him. You don't want him to run you over, right? You still want to be able to attack, but in order to do that, you have to be in an athletic stance. So, excuse me, this is my guy, Kedrick Cunningham. He's coming out now this year, trying to make it to the pros, and he's a heck of a ball player, super strong kid, right? So what am I doing in this drill? I'm still in my stance and start rep. I'm still playing with speed, great pad level. You can see with the PVC pipe, and at the end, I'm overemphasizing what eyes below eyes. He can't block this guy with high pad level because I have PVC pipe here. So when we come up on it, I settle the strike. Those are my short choppy steps. That's me going speed to power. I want to see him have more of a reverse arc in his back and have tight hands, but you're gonna see him truly punch this pad and make it, for lack of better terms, make it hell on that defensive back when you don't have the ball. Punch. So watch him do it in the game. It's the same thing. Same thing. It's not a kill block.
Take it back to that one where he ran the kid over. So the defensive back coach in you, like this is that to me, that is the hardest position to play in football, is to play that nickel or that guy walked over two. Right. Like, so you have to know whether it's run or pass. I guess this is zone coverage. I'm not really sure. Go ahead and play it, coach. Okay, so it's zone. He's dropping back. Like, just from what you've learned from Coach Cheetah, I don't know if he coaches the nickels or not, but like, man, that's the hardest position to play in football. You have to read, run, pass. You either got to knock a dude off. I guess if it's man coverage, you just have your eyes on your guy. But there's a lot going on there, and you got to defeat blocks. I mean, could you go? I mean, I knew we were talking about wide receiver play, but
I can touch base on it.
Touch base on that, because I mean that's the toughest position to me to play.
So, what we teach from a standpoint of coaching progression on defense here at Virginia Tech is 44. And what 44 means is the 4 things you do before the snap for 4 quarters. And the 4 things, we ask our guys to do before the snap go in this order: alignment, stance, key, assignment. So you see the same similarities: align correctly, just like a receiver; stance correctly, just like a receiver, right? The difference is now key. On defense, your eyes tell you what your responsibility are. So for nickel, the guys that play fast are looking at the right things, right? So if he's in zone coverage, he needs to be looking at low hats, high hats, and quickly deciphering if it's run or pass. That guy on that play that you saw get ran over is kind of padding his feet, kind of indecisive, and as a result, he's knocked off, he's off balance, and he just gets put on his tail, right? So you want to see a guy who sees, okay, boom, that tackle's driving off the ball, go play run now, If I have zone responsibilities, I can go play run now. If I get high hat right to tackle pass blocks, then I want to play pass now. Whether that means I'm getting hands on, whether that means I'm protecting the hash, right? Whatever that means for me. But the main thing, in our coaching progression for that specific position is reading your key. You got to understand where your eyes are supposed to be, and that's going to allow me to do my last part of the 44, which is my assignment in the best way that I possibly can. So that's kind of how we teach a coach.
Yeah, then like you throw the whole RPO in there, and like, are you on the running back side? I mean, they could be reading you too. So I mean,
yeah, and no question, and that comes down to scheme, and again back to reacting or being proactive, right? You want to hold the cards in your hand as a defensive coach, as an offensive coach, and RPO makes that tough. So you don't want to allow the quarterback to just read you all day, and he's never wrong if he's reading you correctly. You want to be able to say, I'm going to play that middle ground and make it tough on him and force him to make a decision that's not black or white. And I think if you can do that in those situations, then you put yourself in a good situation to have to
right on. I appreciate you answering that, Coach. That's high level, man. That you're so young and you know both sides of the ball. It's impressive.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that, Coach. So just continue to see blocking, man, running your feet on contact, inside hands. And these aren't the biggest guys, man. They're doing a good job. Boom, punch.
Let me ask you about your receiver blocking out there, like on these bubbles. Do you teach, like some coaches teach, for receivers to get their hat on the outside, because that's basically, if the ball hits outside, it's a crib call. Is there? Do you teach that?
So you will see that. So the way we taught our bubbles at West Virginia State was the main goal was to get 4 yards. Okay. Go get 4 yards. We wanted to treat it just like a run play. If you can get us 4 yards on a bubble, we felt like it was a win, right? So we had 2 calls at West Virginia State, and the first one was Nike. So that was kind of like in our bunch sets, and what Nike meant was check with me. So if I have 3 receivers, let's say I got a 3 receiver set in this bunch, and the inside receivers running the bubble, the other 2 are blocking. The outside receiver would say, the point man would say Nike, 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 Nike. So what that told the outside receiver is, before you go block the corner, I want you to check with me, make sure I'm good. Let's set this edge so the party can get started. That's what we said at Florida State. Let's start the party first. So I'm going to set this edge. We're going to double team this Sam or this nickel, whoever the point man is, and then work out to the corner, right? And then we had another call that was called jump. So what that mean was just like fighting. We're going to jump him. We're not even going to worry about the corner because he might be playing cover 4.
Yeah, we're going to double him. We're going to make sure we block that guy first. Then we got a one-on-one out there.
Correct. So we had Nike and jump out there, which allowed us to say, okay, is a corner playing where we got to worry about him hitting the bubble in the face, or is he playing soft like you see right here up top, where okay, if we
don't have to block him,
right? If we wanted to, we could jump this guy and allow him to play one-on-one with this guy.
Yeah, and so if there was no call, the receiver would block number 1, and then the number 2 receiver block number 2.
Correct.
And if any, like Coach Mills at Dinwiddie, he does so much with this. And let me ask you this: as a receiver coach and a receiver, he really doesn't have his receivers block, because like every play on the run side, he has like quick game, and then on the back side, he has behind the line screen, a look pass, a smoke screen. So it's like, is that the future of football, where receivers don't block? Because I mean, you can get holding calls so easily out on the perimeter.
I think that there is benefits to both. I think that anytime you force a defense to respect the run and the pass, you are creating an advantage for yourself. So I understand, and I love Coach Mills. He's a great guy. I understand why that is his philosophy. I want to at least present the option to throw the ball and the option to run the ball as much as I can. I think that from a mentality standpoint and a psychological standpoint, working with corners, working with receivers, oftentimes in football, the corner is the weakest tackler on the team. That's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You don't recruit those guys expecting their strongest asset to be their tackler. Now,
like Deion Sanders, everybody forgets he didn't like tackling very much.
Correct, exactly. So with that being said, I think that there's a level of physical dominance you can impose on your opponent when you block them to make them want to give up, be softer.
Yeah.
And I love that part of the game. That's the part of the game that maybe me working on defense, playing defense in high school, and having just that passion. Like, I want to impose my will on that guy. And if I'm just running smoke screens on the backside every time we run zone away, then I'm cutting him a break. I'm kind of giving him a play where he's kind of okay. I can play the cutback this play, and I don't got to worry about much. Where I also see the benefit in, I don't want to put myself in 1st and 20, and now I'm out of what I would customarily call.
Yeah,
So I see both sides, but for me, I love blocking. I love blocking. I love receivers who block. And is that the future of football? Potentially, potentially. But I think that the guys at the higher level are so fast at defensive back specifically that you have to have something that, maybe it is a pass, a route that holds them from making an impact in the run.
Yeah.
I think that it'll probably be both. It'll probably be a little bit of both.
Coach Mills, he does teach blocking, but the extreme to that is like Coach Beatty, who's the receiver coach for the Chargers. I know they don't do this in pro football, but when he's at Lansdowne, man, those receivers, they would just stand out there. Yeah. And like he was like, just save your energy, He was way ahead of his time, man. If anybody can go and look at Lansdowne from like 04, I mean, that offense that he ran, I mean, he's coaching pro football now. I mean, it's still good today. I mean, you could run it today in high school. So like it's interesting to learn. And then like your coach, I mean, if he puts a receiver out there, Coach Jamie Harless, I mean, he is the biggest line ever. There's so many different ways to skin a cat, man,
Yes, sir. No question. No question. I think, like you said, there's value to all. I worked with Kendall Browse when I was at Florida State. He was an OC, and his father, Art Browse, was kind of like one of the founding fathers of telling the receivers, like, if you're not in the pass concept, just stand there. There's no point in exerting energy. And there's value to that. There's value to that if you got some guys out there that can really run and take the top off. And you play with the wide splits and stuff like Tennessee does and things like that. There's value to it. There's value to both sides. So it's just depending upon your philosophy as a coach. So yeah, I hope this tape kind of helps coach on the blocking question. But you see, like, those guys try to get outside leverage on the bubble.
Yeah.
And then you got MDM. You got to remember, like, sometimes you're going to get a sky safety, and you got to be able to watch that. And this was good for us.
Now, how do you believe in teaching your bubble screens? Like, I see you're backing out on that. I know, like, the Saints with Sean Payton. He was like one of the first guys really to do that, the back into the sideline. And then there's other guys that teach the bubble differently. I mean, how do you teach that?
I'll tell you this, Coach. The true bubble, where you lose ground and you gain width at the same time, is one of the hardest catches and throws in football.
Yeah, because you're not giving your chest.
It's tough, right? Exactly. To track the football, it's tough to give the quarterback a target, and so that's where you get the back out and show numbers, and then you also don't lose as much ground, so you're protecting as much yardage as you can. For me, I learned this from Norvell. My favorite one is actually like just not moving.
And like a look pass. I mean, like uncovered.
And the reason for that is there's no indicators. There's no indicators of a bubble. You don't know what's gonna happen. So I'm saying, ready, set, hut, boom, snap the ball, just don't move. So now if I'm the Sam, what I say was important for the Sam to read his keys. Well, his key hasn't moved. So by the time the quarterback catches and opens, and he's like, okay, now I need to trigger. Well, guess what? I've MDM blocked him. So my outside receivers push cracking him. And now I'm getting vertical now. I'm trying to slip inside of that corner. Hopefully that corner's playing. If we're calling the play, hopefully they're playing cover three or four, and he's zoning out. Right. So that was honestly my favorite was just not moving. Because you eradicate the indicator for the defense, and defense is largely based upon playing on keys.
Yeah, it's amazing to me watching high school or college sometimes that there's so many times that there's receivers out there like the defense will play 2 over 3 receivers, or there's an uncovered guy out there, and the easiest way to get on the ball is, like you said, just catch it and throw it to him.
Right, 100%. So, Coach, I could talk ball all day, man. Hopefully this presentation helps some coaches out there, help market myself as well. And hopefully I explained something to help somebody learn something today. The drill tape is actually on my Instagram. It's 23 minutes long, and it has everything that you saw. As far as the presentation, if anybody wants that, I'll send it to Coach Troy, and he can maybe post a link to it or something like that on the YouTube channel or something of that nature. So
yeah, we can.
I know this has been pretty long, Coach, probably your longest one, but I wanted to make an impact and show a little bit about what I know about receiver play. So
yeah, but AJ, I mean, if you go back and watch, like, the first person we had on was Coach Mills, and I let my other coaches do that, and I was getting frustrated with them because I was, writing questions up and didn't mess the questions up, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna take this over. I was like, I'm gonna do this myself.
Mm-hmm.
Then I did it, and I was like, man, this was hard.
Right.
Like it just depends on who the person is, and if they really want to talk. And
right.
I mean, me, if it's a media person I'm talking to, you're not going to get the real me. But I mean, if we're just sitting here and we're talking about football, like, dude, we were on this thing almost 2 hours, but I mean, it flew by, and it's because of you.
Yes,
sir. It really isn't me. It's because of you. And because sometimes I do these and I'm like, man, like, the guy really don't want to talk, or so right. It's really you, and it's a testament to you, and you're willing to give back and help coaches. And I mean, you're a rising star in the profession, man. I look forward to following you and pulling for Virginia Tech. I'm a Virginia guy. If there's any coaches out there that would like to contact you, what's the best way for them to contact you? And is there anything else that you would like to leave the clinic, Championship Football Coaches Clinic, with?
Well, first off, thank you so much, Coach, for all the high praise you continue to bestow upon me. It really means a lot, coming from someone as accomplished as yourself. Secondly, if coaches want to reach out to me, my Twitter handle, my Instagram handle are both Coach Hamp __, which is you can see right there at the bottom of this. If you want to email me, it's just my name, ajhampton@vt.edu. So ajhampton@vt.edu is a good way to professionally email me if that's what you desire. And if you do that, I'll give you my phone number through there. And then other than that, Coach, I'd be remiss if I didn't say one other thing. It's vitally important, and this is just me. And I'm no preacher or no pastor, but it's helped me in my career. And whether you're a coach watching this, a player, aspiring coach, aspiring player, fan of football, whatever it may be, believe in the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Without Him, none of this would be possible.
Amen.
And I'm blessed and highly favored, and I know that coaching at this level comes with a world of responsibility. But I don't do it alone. Without my Lord and Savior, I would have never been sitting in this seat. So if I didn't give Him praise in advance and everything that He's done in my life. And yeah, man, look out for Virginia Tech football this year. We're coming. And also shout out my little brother Cameron Moss down there at Chowan, and all my wideouts over there at West Virginia State University.
Well, thank you, Coach. We appreciate you. And, I've got a call sign I'm using. It's keep playing. So I'm going to end this with keep playing, because that's what my philosophy is keep playing.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Coach. Keep playing.
Keep playing, Coach. I appreciate you.